The restaurant hums with the quiet clink of silverware, the low murmur of voices, the velvet scrape of chairs against polished marble floors. Crystal chandeliers scatter light across gold-rimmed glasses, and waiters glide like shadows, balancing plates that smell of truffle and wine. At the center of this glowing room sits a man in a suit worth more than the rent of everyone around him. His cufflinks catch the light. His watch, heavy and cold, ticks with a rhythm that seems louder than the soft music. He leans back, the corners of his mouth twitching with satisfaction. A half-finished meal rests on the table, delicate cuts of meat untouched, garnish still glistening. His phone buzzes with messages from business partners, but he ignores it. He doesn't need to hurry. Time bends for men like him. Then something shifts. A shadow falls across the table. Thin, hesitant, trembling, the man looks up. Standing just beyond the glow of the chandelier is a girl. Small, almost fragile, her clothes are torn at the sleeves, shoes scuffed to threads. She doesn't belong here, and the room knows it. Forks freeze midair. Conversations choke to a halt. She doesn't care. Her eyes, large, dark, and burning with something raw, lock onto his plate. And in a voice so soft it almost vanishes into the velvet air, she whispers, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" The words hang heavy, cutting through the perfume of wealth and smoke of cigars. The waiters exchange nervous glances, a couple gasps, someone mutters about calling security, but the man doesn't move. He doesn't blink. His chest feels tight, as though invisible hands are pressing down. Her voice isn't like the voices of beggars he's passed on the street, the ones he's ignored with a cold glance or a tightened grip on his wallet. This voice carries no accusation, no shame, only a trembling dignity that pierces deeper than he expects. She isn't demanding, she isn't even pleading, she is asking, as though even this small request must be weighed against rejection. The room waits. He could wave her away, pretend she doesn't exist, and the world would return to its comfortable rhythm. He could toss a few bills on the table, gesture for the staff to handle it, and never think about her again. That's what everyone expects him to do, but he can't. Not when those eyes hold his. Not when, for the first time in years, he feels something stirring beneath the armor of wealth and power. A memory tugs at him, sharp and unwanted, something he thought he buried long ago. His hand freezes halfway to his glass. The chandeliers seem dimmer now, the whispers louder, the air heavier. He stares at her, and she doesn't flinch. He sees hunger, yes, but also fire, a stubborn spark that refuses to be extinguished. And in that spark, something dangerous begins to burn inside him. Her frame looks fragile, yet her presence slices through the luxury of the room. She doesn't shuffle like someone used to begging. She stands still, shoulders squared, though her clothes betray her story in every frayed thread. A faded shirt hangs loose, sleeves ripped at the seam. The skirt she wears might once have been bright, but now it's dulled by dust and weather. Her shoes, mismatched laces tied together in desperation, seem to barely cling to her feet. The diners pretend not to see. It is easier that way. A woman in pearls lowers her eyes to her soup, as if the steam might shield her from discomfort. A businessman coughs into his napkin, staring hard at the tablecloth. Invisible, that's what she is supposed to be. Someone to step around on the sidewalk, someone to ignore at the corner of the street. Someone who doesn't belong where the chandeliers burn and the wine flows. But tonight she refuses to vanish. The hunger in her face is sharp, but not wild. Her cheeks are hollow, her lips cracked, yet there's something else in her eyes, not just need, dignity carved deep by survival. It unsettles the man, the millionaire in his polished suit, because her gaze doesn't waver. She doesn't shrink back when the manager frowns, or when a couple at the corner sneers in disgust. She simply waits, poised in the silence, as if her very presence is a question none of them want to answer. She is young, but hardship has etched lines that don't belong on a face so small. Her hands, clasped together, are bruised and scratched, the nails broken from work no one in this restaurant would ever imagine. Yet she holds them steady, as though she won't allow them to tremble. She carries herself with the kind of composure that wealth cannot purchase. The man finds himself staring, longer than he means to. He sees the way the light from the chandelier reflects in her eyes, and it unsettles him because it feels familiar. A memory begins to stir, tugging at the edge of his mind, but he pushes it down. For now, all he sees is her standing in the doorway of his world, a reminder of everything he thought he'd left behind. Around them, tension thickens. The staff hover, unsure whether to intervene. Patrons whisper, their voices dripping with judgment. But the girl remains unmoved. Her hunger is obvious, but it is not the kind that begs for pity. It is the kind that declares survival. Every second she stands there, she disrupts the unspoken rules of this glittering room. The man notices the details others ignore. The way her jaw tightens when someone mutters charity case. The way her shoulders stiffen as if she's bracing for rejection. The way her eyes, though tired, still burn with the stubborn insistence of someone who refuses to collapse. And he realizes she doesn't want to be saved, she only wants to eat. The sound of her voice lingers in his chest long after she's spoken. A request so simple, so small, yet it cracks open something he thought was locked away forever. The restaurant fades at the edges of his vision. The clink of glasses, the shuffle of feet, even the velvet music. It all dulls, replaced by a sharper noise, the hollow growl of an empty stomach. His stomach. His memory, he is no longer seated at a marble table. He is a boy again. Thin legs pulled tight to his chest, sitting on the cold edge of a curb that smells of gasoline and rain. His hands are dirty, his shirt too big for his small frame, sleeves stiff with grime. Around him, life moves quickly. Men in hats step over him. Women tighten their grip on their purses, no one pausing to notice. Just like now, invisibility presses against him, suffocating and cruel. The hunger is unbearable. It burns, it gnaws, it twists inside him like a blade. He remembers watching other children bite into rolls of bread, hearing the crunch, smelling the warmth, and wondering what it might be like to taste such softness. He remembers the humiliation of pressing his palm against a bakery window, only to be shoved away by the baker who muttered that beggars bring down the street. Yet he also remembers the one hand that reached out. A stranger, face blurred now in memory, who bent low and placed bread in his lap without a word. The crust was hard, the inside still warm, and as he ate it, tears had rolled down his cheeks, not just from hunger, but from the shock of kindness. That single act had carved itself into him. It had become fuel, a spark that one day drove him to claw his way upward, to build a life so far removed from the curb that he could forget it ever happened. Or so he thought, but looking at the girl, standing there in rags among polished shoes and silk gowns, the past drags him back with brutal force. He feels again the cold pavement beneath his body. He hears again the way people coughed and turned their faces to avoid him. He tastes again the shame, metallic and bitter, of being seen as nothing more than a nuisance. His chest tightens. He grips the edge of his chair, nails pressing into the wood. He doesn't want this memory, not here, not now. He is a man of power, respect, wealth, yet the child inside him will not be silenced. The child whispers of nights without blankets, of mornings scavenging for scraps, of the way hope can starve just as quickly as the body. And now, across the table, a pair of eyes mirrors that same desperation, that same flicker of survival. It is as though the boy he once was has returned, not in his reflection, but in her gaze. The restaurant remains hushed, the tension sharp, and the man cannot decide if what is rising inside him is guilt, recognition, or something far more dangerous. The girl's question still trembles in the air. Waiters hover in the corners, caught between duty and fear of scandal. Diners watch with wide eyes, forks frozen halfway to their mouths, breaths caught in their throats. The man feels the weight of 100 unspoken expectations pressing down on him. Dismiss her, silence her, keep the lines of the world intact, wealth on one side, hunger on the other, that's the rule. That's how it's always been, but something resists. Something inside him coils, restless, as though the child from his memory has slipped into his skin. The child who once waited for crumbs now urges him to break the silence. His hand twitches near the plate, his jaw tightens. He feels the pulse in his temple, hammering louder than the murmurs that ripple through the room. He knows what everyone expects, a nod to the manager, a discreet gesture to security, maybe a token bill tossed her way to end the scene quickly. But every time he looks at her, the thought repulses him. She is not a nuisance, she is not a stain, she is a mirror, fragile yet unyielding, staring back at him with eyes that demand something he has spent years avoiding: humanity. His throat tightens as he shifts in his chair. The girl doesn't move. She stands rooted, her hands clasped in front of her as though holding herself together with sheer force. Her hunger is obvious, but her pride is sharper still. That's what twists the knife in his chest. She's asking for food, but she refuses to bow. That defiance stirs something reckless in him, and then he rises. The scrape of his chair against the marble floor slices through the room. Every head swivels toward him. He pushes the plate aside, not toward her, but completely away. His hand extends, not to offer money, not to dismiss, but to her. A gesture no one in this glittering hall dares to comprehend. His voice, low but steady, cuts the silence. "Come, sit at my table." A collective gasp. Utensils clatter against porcelain. The manager rushes forward, panic in his eyes, whispering harsh warnings near the man's ear. "Sir, this isn't proper. Think of your reputation. Let us handle it." The words are urgent, desperate, like chains trying to drag him back into the cage of expectation. But he doesn't listen. He doesn't even glance at the manager. His eyes remain fixed on hers. There's a flicker in them. Fear, disbelief, hope fighting against caution. For the first time, her composure cracks just slightly. She hesitates, caught between instinct and invitation, between survival and something she doesn't dare believe is real. The room is no longer just watching, it is judging. Murmurs coil like snakes, tightening around every second of silence. They whisper of disgrace, of madness, of a man unraveling. He feels their gaze clawing at him, but for once, their power means nothing. Because right now, the only answer that matters is hers. The girl's body trembles as she lowers herself into the chair across from him. A chair meant for dignitaries, tycoons, names stamped on newspapers, now occupied by a child of the street. Forks resume their clinking in awkward, stuttering rhythms. Conversations return in broken fragments, though every glance keeps darting toward the unlikely pair at the center. The man gestures to the plate. She hesitates, her fingers hovering over the utensils like they might burn her skin. When she finally takes a bite, she chews slowly, almost reverently, as if she's tasting something forbidden. Her lips tremble and a tear slides down her cheek, not just from hunger, from shock, from disbelief, from the crushing weight of sitting where she was never meant to sit. He watches her carefully. Every detail etches itself into him. The way her shoulders curve inward, as though she expects the food to be snatched away. The way her hands shake even as she tries to steady them. The way relief floods her face with every swallow. Then her voice, barely audible, cracks through the tension. She tells him her story, a fire, that's how it began. Flames swallowing the small house where she once lived. The smoke stealing everything in minutes, her parents, her comfort, the photos on the wall, the toys by her bed. She escaped, but nothing else did. No home, no family, no future. Since then, the streets have been her bed, hunger her shadow, silence her only companion. The man leans in, each word dragging him deeper. His chest aches as though she's cutting through the fabric of his armor with a blade sharper than steel. He's heard countless tales of suffering before, but this one doesn't feel like another story. It feels like a reflection. Then she speaks her birthday. He stiffens. The date lands like a blow to the ribs, the same as his daughter's. His daughter who never lived past childhood, the wound he sealed with money and distraction, the loss he swore he would never look at again. He swallows hard, trying to mask the tremor in his throat. Coincidence, he tells himself, but the ground under him feels unsteady, and then she says her name, simple, delicate. The sound carves through him like a ghost returning from the grave. It is his mother's name, the one woman who taught him compassion before death, silenced her too soon. The air thickens, pressing down until every breath feels heavy. He studies the girl, really studies her now, and what he sees shakes him to the core. This isn't just a hungry stranger. This is a thread of his past stitched directly into his present. A living reminder of everything he buried beneath fortune and marble walls. The room no longer matters. The whispers, the stares, the scorn, they dissolve into fog. All he hears is her voice, soft and unyielding, pulling him into places he vowed never to return. He doesn't know if it's fate, punishment, or something far stranger, but he cannot look away. Something inside him begins to unravel, one knot at a time, as though destiny has dragged this girl into his path, not by accident, but by design. The man sits motionless, her words echoing in his chest like bells he cannot silence. The name, the birthday, the story of fire and loss, all threads that weave themselves into the tapestry of his past. He thought he had buried that boy on the curb, that grieving father, that son clutching memories of his mother. But here she is, forcing every piece of him to surface again. He inhales sharply, his decision forming not from logic, not from reputation, but from something deeper, something he has not felt in years. Compassion. The waiters hover, waiting for his order to dismiss her. The diners hold their breaths, expecting the collapse of dignity, the restoration of order. But he does not dismiss. Instead, he leans forward and places his hand flat on the table, steady, deliberate. His voice is calm, yet it slices through the tension. You won't ask for scraps again. The girl blinks, fork frozen in her hand, her lips part, but no sound comes. The room stirs in shock, a storm of whispers swelling louder. The manager shakes his head, his face pale, but the man ignores them all. He calls for more food, a full meal delivered at once, more than she could finish in days. Plates arrive, steaming, rich, fragrant. And he watches as she eats, no longer timid but desperate, releasing the hunger she has carried like a chain. Something inside him breaks, not painfully, but like a dam collapsing to release long, stagnant water. For years he has built walls of stone around his heart, thinking that wealth could shield him from pain, but the girl's presence has shattered it. He feels lighter, rawer, vulnerable in a way that terrifies him, but also frees him. When she finishes, he tells her she will not return to the streets tonight. She will have a room, a bed, clothes, and safety. He will see to it personally. Her eyes widen, disbelief warring with the need to trust. She searches his face for deceit, but finds none. And this is only the beginning. In the weeks that follow, the girl's life transforms. She enrolls in school. She walks through doors once closed to her, her head high, no longer invisible. He funds not just her future, but others too, children lost in hunger, families broken by fire, the forgotten standing at the edges of glittering cities. He builds a foundation in her name, one that feeds and shelters those who once had no place at the table. Yet the true miracle is not the money spent or the buildings erected. It is the man himself. For the first time since his daughter's death, since his mother's passing, since his own hunger clawed at him as a child, he feels alive. The girl has not simply taken his leftovers, she has given him back his heart. And in the silence of his grand home, long after the world has stopped whispering about the night in the restaurant, he understands something simple, something profound. Sometimes the smallest question can change the course of a life. "May I have your leftovers, sir?" It was never just about food. It was about remembrance, about compassion, about becoming human again.